My sister took every last cent of the family fortune, and I was left with a single dollar. Don't spend it all at once, they joked. Laughter filled the room. But when I turned that dollar into millions, suddenly, they weren't laughing anymore. Instead, they came knocking, hands out, pleading. I shared my story on Reddit last week, in a thread about family betrayals, and the flood of responses caught me off guard. Some people called me a liar, saying it sounded too outrageous to be real. Others messaged to say they had lived through something just as unfair. But this isn't fiction. This is my life. And it all began the day my grandfather's will was read. The family gathered at a law office. My parents, my sister Jessica, and me. My brother, Ryan, didn't bother to show up. He had his own life, running a business on the California coast, too wrapped up in success to waste time on family drama. I wasn't expecting much, but I figured I'd get something, at least a small token, a gesture. My grandfather wasn't billionaire rich, but he had enough wealth to ensure that none of his children or grandchildren would ever struggle financially. Well, none of them except me, apparently. The Malibu property, the family's bank account, and all company shares will go to Jessica, the attorney announced. A hush fell over the room. Then he cleared his throat. And for Emma. He hesitated. She receives $1. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes, shifting in her seat uncomfortably. My father, as usual, remained silent. Jessica? She smirked. $1 is still money, she remarked, her voice dripping with amusement. And right then, Ryan strolled in, fashionably late as always. He took one look at me, grinned, and chimed in, "Don't spend it all at once." His laughter rang out, and the rest of them joined in. I said nothing. Just took the envelope with the lone dollar bill inside, shoving every emotion deep down for later. Looking back, I can't say I was shocked. That would be a lie. My grandfather never truly liked me. It wasn't that he was cruel, just that I never fit into his perfect mold of what a granddaughter should be. He was the kind of man who believed he was always right, no matter what. The rest of us? We were just there to nod along. Jessica figured that out early. She mastered the art of telling him exactly what he wanted to hear. "You're so right, Grandpa. You're the wisest man I know, Grandpa." And he adored her for it. I was the one who asked too many questions. The one who didn't sit quietly and agree just to please him. I remember one Christmas when I was 9. We were all at his house. Jessica unwrapped an enormous teddy bear, almost the size of a grown adult. My turn came, and I received a small box. Inside? An old dictionary. "Smart girls read," he said without even looking at me. My mother nudged me, signaling me to say something. "Thank you, Grandpa." "Don't waste your time on nonsense, Emma," he replied before turning back to Jessica to make sure she adored her gift. At the time, I didn't fully understand. But as the years passed, it all became clear. Jessica was the golden child because she never challenged him. Meanwhile, I was just a little too opinionated for his liking. It wasn't just one Christmas. It was everything. If Jessica scraped her knee, he was there in an instant, ready to comfort her. If I got hurt? Shake it off. When Jessica turned 18, he gifted her a BMW X5. When I reached 18, I had to scrape together every penny just to buy a Schwinn bicycle. Over time, I learned not to expect anything from him. And in the end, that's exactly what he left me, nothing. After the will reading, no one in my family brought it up. No phone calls. No messages. It was as if the whole thing never happened. But I couldn't just move on. When I returned to my tiny, 300-square-foot apartment, I tossed the envelope onto my table and stared at the crisp $1 bill inside. "Don't spend it all at once," I muttered under my breath, mimicking Ryan's voice. And then, alone in that cramped space, laughter bubbled out of me, raw, bitter, and teetering on the edge of a breakdown. Because if I didn't laugh, I might have broken down in tears. It wasn't just about the money. It was about how easily they discarded me. How they didn't even bother to fake concern. My bank account was empty. My bills were overdue. I had no job and no room for mistakes. And so, the hunt began, applying to anything and everything. Restaurants, retail stores, office gigs. I didn't care where. Finally, I got a call. Sunset Coffee House. A trial shift. 10-hour shifts. Awful pay. Rude customers. I took it without hesitation. On my first day, a group of sharply dressed businessmen strolled in, looking like they had just stepped out of a Wall Street feature in Forbes. Tailored suits, luxury watches, the whole package. They took a table in the back, chatting loudly about investments, startups, and million-dollar deals. If a business isn't making at least 20 grand a month, it's not even worth the effort, one guy said, sipping his overpriced coffee like it was liquid gold. Money isn't the issue, another one replied, scrolling through his phone. It's about knowing how to make it work for you. And right then, something clicked. Not because I wanted to be like them, but because I realized I had absolutely nothing working for me. I was serving coffee while they were out there making money move. That night, when I got home, exhaustion weighed me down. My feet ached, my body felt like lead, and I collapsed onto my bed, still in my work uniform. But something had shifted, because now I had an idea. But instead of lying down and letting exhaustion take over, I grabbed my laptop and started reading everything I could about business. Not because I had dreams of being rich, but because I was desperate to escape the hole I was in. After nights of staying up until dawn, I finally had an idea. I stumbled across an online course about reselling secondhand items. It seemed simple enough. I figured, why not? I went through my apartment, pulled out a few things I didn't use anymore, and listed them on a resale app. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then, finally, a message popped up. Is this still available? My hands were shaking as I typed back. Yes. Of course. A few hours later, I had my first sale. $25. It wasn't much, but for the first time in my life, I had made money without answering to a boss. That was all the encouragement I needed. I tore through my apartment, searching for more things to sell. But I didn't have much left. So, I started going to flea markets. I found an old jacket for $5 and flipped it for 30. Picked up a purse for 8 and sold it for 50. And that's when it hit me. Money itself wasn't the problem. The real challenge was knowing how to make it work in my favor. For the first time, I saw a way to survive without being dependent on anyone else. I just had to figure out how to do it right. Once I made my first $1,000, the whole thing started snowballing. 2,000. Then 5. Then 8. The process became automatic. Buy, fix up, post, sell. But there was a problem. I was running myself into the ground. Some days, I worked 14 hours straight just keeping up with orders, replying to customers, and organizing shipments. One afternoon, after answering 60 messages in a row, my vision went blurry. I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized myself. I looked like a walking corpse, dark circles under my eyes, my body running on fumes. If I don't hire someone, I'm going to drop dead, I muttered. I held out for a few more weeks, trying to manage everything on my own. But when I started turning down sales because I simply didn't have time, I knew something had to change. The first person I brought in was Hannah. She handled customer messages and managed listings, which freed up hours of my time. Then came Dan, who took care of shipments and organized inventory. After that, I hired Jake, who had supplier connections and started bringing in exclusive products. And finally, Megan, a digital marketing expert who tripled our online reach. In just 4 months, I went from running everything alone to leading a team of 6. We stopped relying solely on resale platforms and launched our own website. We ran ads, improved shipping, and negotiated deals with bigger suppliers. The results were better than I could have imagined. Our revenue tripled. The online store was already pulling in over 30 grand a month, but I wasn't satisfied. I kept thinking about opening a physical store. Online sales were great, but some products needed to be seen and touched before people were willing to buy. I started searching for a location. Some spaces were way too expensive. Others were in dead zones with no foot traffic. After weeks of hunting, I finally found the perfect spot. It wasn't huge, but it was in a prime location. The rent? Almost $3,000 a month. But this time, the number didn't scare me. I signed the lease with my hands shaking from a mix of fear and excitement. I was about to sink 50 grand into this store. It was a ridiculous risk. But it was my kind of ridiculous. On opening day, I had no idea if anyone would show up. But they did. Customers from our online store. People who had seen our ads. Curious strangers who just happened to be walking by. By the time we closed, we had made almost $8,000 in sales. That night, after locking up, I stood alone in the store, looking around at everything I had built. If Grandpa George could see me now, he'd probably be rolling in his grave. Because I had done it. I had built something real. And not just any business, one that was already making over 50 grand a month. For almost a year, I had no contact with my family. After the will reading, I vanished from their lives, and they didn't seem to care. Until my name appeared in a business magazine. That's when the messages started. First, my mother. "Sweetheart, I'm so happy to see you're doing well. We hadn't heard from you in so long. Why don't you come over for dinner with the family?" They hadn't heard from me. Funny how that wasn't an issue until my success became public knowledge. 2 days later, Jessica reached out. "OMG, I saw your store. Congrats. I always knew you'd go far. Hey, we should meet up. I have an idea that might interest you." She always knew I'd go far? That's funny. Last time we spoke, she was laughing about the dollar I got in the inheritance. And it didn't stop there. The following week, my father called. "Sweetheart, we've been thinking. Your business is growing and, well, family should always support each other. Maybe we could help you with management." Translation: we'd like a cut of your success. And then came the final message. This one from Ryan. "Hey, how's everything? I have a friend who might be interested in investing in your business. You should think about it. We're family after all." Yes. Family. Funny how I never heard from them when I was struggling to make rent. But now, suddenly, they wanted to help. Right. We're family. A few days later, my mother showed up at the store unannounced. "Emma." Her voice was overly cheerful, the kind of fake enthusiasm that made my stomach turn. "I'm so happy to see you." I didn't even pretend to play along. "What do you want, Mom?" She gasped, as if offended. "How can you say that? I just wanted to check in on you and, well, I've been thinking. Maybe it's time for you to come back to the family." I stared at her. "Come back to the family?" I repeated, my voice flat. "After you all left me with a single dollar?" "Oh, sweetheart, don't see it that way," she sighed, waving her hand like it was all just some minor misunderstanding. "Your grandfather had his own way of doing things. But that's in the past. What matters is that we can start fresh now." "Start fresh," I echoed. "What does that even mean?" She straightened, her tone turning careful. "Jessica and Ryan spoke to a financial advisor, and they think the smartest move would be to divide the business between the 4 of us." I blinked. "The 4 of us?" "Well, yes," she said, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. "It's only fair. We helped you get here." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You helped me." That was not the response she was expecting. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "Mom," I said, folding my arms, "when I was washing dishes at a coffee shop just to survive, where were you? When you all laughed in my face after the will was read, who helped me then?" She had no answer. "I'm sorry," I continued, my voice calm but firm. "But this business is mine." For a long moment, she just stared at me. Then, pressing her lips together, she finally said the words I knew were coming. "You've become so selfish." I shook my head. "I'm not selfish. I'm just not stupid anymore." It wasn't enough that they had laughed at me when I was left with nothing. It wasn't enough that they ignored me while I was scrubbing dishes for minimum wage. Now that my business was pulling in over $50,000 a month, now they wanted to be family again. And, of course, they thought they deserved a piece of it. After my mother's little visit, I assumed they'd drop it. But I underestimated just how persistent greed can be. Ryan was next. "Emma, think about it," he said over the phone a few days later, his voice smooth, rehearsed. "It doesn't make sense for you to handle everything alone. We're your siblings. We've always been a team." "Always?" I snorted. "The last time we were a team was when I was 10, And you convinced me to give you my savings so you could buy a video game. Emma, my mother's voice chimed in next, soft and condescending. Sweetheart, I don't want you to feel pressured, but family should support each other. You can't hold on to resentment forever. Your grandfather hurt you, but we didn't. I scoffed. Didn't you? You were the ones who laughed when Jessica took everything. You were the ones who stood by and did nothing. Jessica's text arrived the next day. Em, can we talk in person? I don't want you to misunderstand our intentions. Their intentions couldn't have been clearer. They wanted me to disappear when I had nothing. But now that I was successful, they suddenly wanted a conversation. A week later, my mother called again, this time inviting me to dinner. I don't know why I agreed to go. Maybe a small part of me was still curious to see just how far they'd go. When I arrived, they were already seated at the table. Jessica, Ryan, my parents. They even had a lawyer. Emma, my mother started, pouring me a glass of wine like this was some normal, loving family dinner. We know how hard you've worked to build your business. Thanks for noticing, I said, flashing a sarcastic smile. But we've been thinking, my father cut in, using his business voice, the one he reserved for negotiations. It would be a smart move to formalize everything. Make it official. Turn it into a family company. I raised an eyebrow. A family company? Ryan leaned forward, that fake politeness dripping off of him. Something more structured, he explained. Now that your business is stable, we can help with management, growth, investments. Jessica cleared her throat and slid a document across the table. This is a proposal to transition your business into a family corporation, she said, acting like she was doing me a favor. That way, we can all contribute and share in the success. I picked up the paper, skimmed it, then looked up at her. Share? Well, yes, Jessica continued, her tone sickeningly sweet. You'd have 40% since you started it. The remaining 60% would be split between Mom, Dad, Ryan, and me. I stared at her. Then I burst out laughing. Not a forced laugh. A real, genuine, uncontrollable laugh. Wait, I said, holding up a hand. Let me get this straight. I built this business from the ground up. I put in the work, the sweat, the 16-hour days. And now you, who have done nothing, want to take 60% just because we share a last name. Jessica didn't even flinch. Don't see it that way, Em. She gave me that familiar, practiced smile. We're doing this for the good of everyone. The good of everyone, I repeated. Ryan crossed his arms, his fake charm fading. You can't handle this alone. Sooner or later, you'll need support. Better to team up with family now than end up selling to strangers later. My father nodded, his expression calculated. If you think about it, this is the best strategy. It keeps the business in the family. My mother sighed dramatically, slipping into her role as the concerned, well-meaning parent. We can't stay divided, Emma. It's time for you to think about the family. There was the magic phrase, think about the family, said by the same people who left me for dead when I had nothing. I picked up the contract again, held it up between my fingers, and, looking them each in the eye, slowly ripped it into pieces. My answer is no. Jessica rolled her eyes, exasperated. Emma, for God's sake, don't be childish. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, and smiled. Childish? You mean like how you all acted when you left me with $1 just to laugh in my face? Ryan slammed his fist on the table, rattling the silverware. You always have to play the victim. I didn't even blink. I'm not a victim, Ryan. I'm the only one at this table who actually worked for something. My father let out a long breath, rubbing his temples like he was trying to keep his patience in check. Sweetheart, don't turn this into a fight. I'm not fighting, I said calmly. I just have no interest in sharing my business with a family that never once believed in me. For the first time, real panic flickered in their eyes. They hadn't considered the possibility that I would actually say no. My mother, always quick with the guilt trips, went for the final cheap shot. Sweetheart, we raised you. We gave you everything. I leaned forward, my voice steady. You gave me nothing. As far back as I can remember, I've earned everything on my own. I pushed my chair back, grabbed my purse, and turned toward the door. Emma, my father's voice cut through the silence, sharper now. Don't be stupid. This is an opportunity. I paused just long enough to look over my shoulder. Yes, I said slowly, an opportunity. For you. Because I don't need you. And then I walked out. I thought that was the end of it. I thought they'd finally let it go. 2 weeks later, my lawyer called. His voice was tight, urgent. Emma, we need to talk. Now. My stomach twisted. What's going on? Your family, he said carefully, is trying to register a business under your company's name. I went cold. They've already submitted paperwork, he continued. The name is nearly identical to yours. If you don't act fast, they could steal your customers and damage your reputation. So this was plan B. If they couldn't take my business legally, they were going to sink me instead, leave me no choice but to crawl back and accept their help. They had declared war. What they didn't realize was that I was ready to fight. They tried to manipulate me with the excuse of family. They tried to claim my business through contracts and legal loopholes. And when that didn't work, they tried to steal my name. But they made one mistake. They underestimated me. The moment I hung up the phone, I took action. I legally secured everything. I registered my trademark, filed brand rights, and got an immediate injunction to block any attempt at using my business name. The very next day, Jessica called. Emma, she started, her voice forced calm, you're overreacting. What we did is completely legal. I laughed. You tried to steal my company's name, Jessica. It's not stealing, she argued. You didn't patent it before. Besides, we're family. We could have come to an agreement without lawyers. You know what's funny? I asked, leaning back in my chair. Before my business was successful, none of you gave a damn about me. Silence. We just want everyone to win, she tried again, her voice thinner now. Win. I repeated. Like when you tried to take 60% of my company? Don't see it that way, Em, she pleaded. We just want what's best for you. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. What's best for me is for you to disappear. And then I hung up. In less than a month, my family had created a disaster even they couldn't escape from. Because I didn't just block them from using my name, I sued them for business fraud. Ryan tried to open business bank accounts? Denied. Jessica tried using my reputation to attract customers? Sued for brand infringement. They applied for a loan to fund their company? Rejected. And the best part? They were already drowning in debt. While I was building my business from the ground up, they had been burning through the inheritance like it would never run out. Now they were scrambling. My mother called first. Sweetheart, this has gone too far. We can't let the family fall apart over something so silly. Then my father. Emma, negotiate with us. Don't be selfish. Ryan texted. You've turned into a horrible person. But when all of this blows over, you're going to need family. Don't forget that. Oh, I wouldn't forget. But not for the reasons they wanted. Meanwhile, I opened my third store. I was featured in a television interview. I was invited to a young entrepreneur's event. And every time my name was mentioned publicly, I knew my family was somewhere, seething, knowing there was nothing they could do about it. I didn't see them for almost a year. Then one morning I walked into a cafe, grabbed my coffee, and glanced toward the back. And there she was. Jessica. Sitting across from a lawyer, her face drawn, her body rigid with tension. Curious, I walked over. Hey, Jessica. She looked up, and in that moment I saw it. The flicker of panic, the way her face turned ghostly pale. What are you doing here? She snapped. I smiled. Having a coffee. You. She didn't answer, but I saw the papers on the table. A foreclosure notice. And just like that, I understood everything. They had lost everything. I leaned in slightly, my voice soft, almost amused. Shame the family didn't know how to support each other, huh? Her glare was pure poison. But I just smiled, turned around and walked away, savoring the sweetest victory of my life. They left me with $1. I left them with nothing. I never expected my story to blow up on Reddit the way it did. I posted it just to vent, to process everything that had happened. But the response was overwhelming. Some people were supportive, sharing their own experiences of being the discarded one in their family. Others were less kind. I'm going to respond to a few. You're bitter. Family is family, no matter what. God, if I had $1 for every time someone told me that, I'd have another store by now. This idea that family should be untouchable no matter how much damage they cause is exactly why so many people stay trapped in toxic relationships. They left me with nothing. They laughed in my face. They watched me struggle and didn't care. But the moment they saw me succeed, suddenly they appeared. Not because they missed me. Not because they loved me. Because they wanted something. So no, I don't owe them anything. Some people have told me I was just as cruel as them. That I destroyed my own family. I'll be honest. Yes, I enjoyed watching them fall. When I saw Jessica with those foreclosure papers, when I saw the desperation where there had once been arrogance, I felt something I won't deny. Satisfaction. Because this wasn't some random misfortune that hit them out of nowhere. They dug their own graves. Am I a bad person for laughing in her face? Maybe. But if anyone tells me that, in my position, they would have been a saint, that they would have reached out with kindness and offered a helping hand after everything, they're lying. That doesn't mean I don't feel anything. That doesn't mean it hasn't made me think. At the end of the day, they're still my parents. Still my siblings. Am I really going to carry this resentment forever? That's the question that lingers in the back of my mind. Because, believe it or not, I don't hate my family. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and wonder, what if things had been different? Sometimes I catch myself remembering the good moments. A childhood vacation. My mother brushing my hair before school. The time Ryan stood up for me on the playground. Do those memories disappear just because of what they did? They're still my family. And as much as it hurts, I know that someday I'll have to see them again. Maybe at my mother's funeral. Maybe when one of them, beaten down by life, knocks on my door asking for help. And when that moment comes, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know if I'll be able to give them another chance, or if I'll simply close the door. I don't know if I'll ever be able to sit at a table with them again without feeling the weight of everything they did. But the one thing I do know, for the first time in my life, the decision will be mine. And that, at least, gives me peace. Thank you all for reading and for your comments, good or bad. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm going to keep doing what I do best. Being the owner of my own life.